Hello, everyone. I'm Dan Limbach. I'm the producer of the Pharma Voice Webcast Network. Welcome to our ThinkTank event entitled Successfully Navigating a New Course Technology, Medicine, and Leadership. Brought to you by Pharma Voice in partnership with our good friends at Real Chemistry. We have a very accomplished and knowledgeable expert in the tank with us today to discuss the marriage of technology and medicine to improve drug development. Let's meet our panel. Taryn Grome, co-founder and editor-in-chief, Pharma Voice, will moderate the discussion. Myrtle Potter, Chief Executive Officer, Semidavant Biopharma Inc., will be our thought leader. Now I'd like to hand it over to Taryn to begin the discussion. Taryn, take it away.
Thanks, Dan. Myrtle, it's great to see you again. Hope everything is well with you.
Thank you. It's nice to see you too.
Myrtle, your company is leveraging its drug-ohm technology and digital innovation platform to ask and answer critical questions that reduce development timelines and costs, reduce uncertainty, and enable us to build and advance a diverse portfolio of transformative therapies across many indications, including cancer, reproductive health, pulmonary, neurological diseases, and rare and ultra-rare diseases. Let's talk about how this marriage of technology and medicine and why you believe this is so important to the future of drug development.
Yes, so at Semidavant, we really do believe that leveraging new technologies like artificial intelligence, machine learning, natural language processing is all really critical to our industry being able to move faster, smarter, and more deliberately to help find solutions for patients. Healthcare technology, we believe, can make a big difference. We believe for our company, it's what I call a strategic accelerator.
So in fact, it's so important to you that your computational analytics and science officers report directly to you because the science
Mhm.
and the technology are so important. So explain more to me how this works within your organization.
Yes, so we have two technology platforms. You talked about them a little bit. I really believed from the very beginning that if, in fact, these technology platforms were going to be strategic accelerators for us, that it was important for those leaders to report directly to me. I didn't want them or the functions buried down in an organization as they were trying to work to struggle to find their way and their place in our company. So one of my goals is to make certain that this great technology that we have never gets disconnected from our business strategy.
And how do you make sure that that happens? I mean, obviously you have a strat plan, and I love that term strategic accelerator. So how are you accelerating that strategy within your organization?
So, the first thing that we're doing is making certain that our organization understands the power of technology, where it has application, where we can scale the application of the technology for the betterment of our efforts to serve patients. The next thing we do is we work to make certain that our leaders understand also how the technology platforms that we have can help them achieve their business goals. At the end of the day, we really want broad adoption, broad understanding, and we want, as an organization, for us to have a very rich gestalt around the power of what these technologies can do.
Can you provide a couple examples where you've had some success?
Sure, we have we've used these technologies to help us accelerate clinical trial enrollment. We've used the technologies to help us identify and really land on unique insights that better help us position our products. We've used the technology to help us identify lead target assets with our research efforts. So it's really very broad.
That's excellent. And
Mhm.
obviously with technology comes a lot of change management
Mhm.
because people get nervous. Well, if technology, is it going to take my job? Am I going to be replaced by a machine? And that's clearly not the case because we need good
Mhm.
scientists to interpret what the technology outputs. How are you like managing that piece of it? Because people don't like change, as we know.
Well, interestingly enough, at Sunita Vat, we probably naturally draw to our company individuals who really love innovation, they love progress, they get enthusiastic about the future and what the future holds. And so I think that's one small hurdle we don't have to deal with. But you're right about the pace of change. I mean, my goodness, just look over the last year what we've learned about the pace of change. If there's anything I've learned from the last year, it's that as much as we think that change is difficult, this past year we proved as companies, as leaders, as employers, that we actually can embrace change and drive it at even a faster rate than we ever thought possible.
You know, that's a great segue into my next line of questioning is that pace of change. And the industry has really positioned itself for driving the greater good. But some might argue that it's not possible to sustain that pace of innovation. What say you?
I say that we really don't know. And I say I'm very hopeful that fast paced, aggressive development of new therapies is really possible for our industry. You know, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, if we had said we could develop, a number of very viable vaccines for COVID in a matter of months, we would have said that's impossible. We would have said that our governments couldn't move fast enough, and we would have said that the patient population wasn't ready, that the adoption wouldn't be there. And my goodness, we've seen exactly the opposite. We saw government move fast, we saw industry move even faster, and we saw patients trust, adopt, and come on board with these vaccines in a time frame that is just simply unprecedented. So I'm very hopeful about what this means for the future. And I take all of what we saw over the last 2 years as very powerful proof points regarding what's possible for the future.
I love that what's possible for the future. And as we look to the future, companies such as yours are needing to chart a new course in light of the pandemic and what the skills are that leaders of the future are going to need to be successful. How are you adopting your leadership team and your leadership style to the future?
So I would say that first of all, I'm really working very hard to make sure that I'm never the one that's holding up the pace of innovation and the pace of progress. We all like to think that we're very progressive, that we live on the cutting edge, we're forward thinking, we're staying up to date with the science. But as leaders, we really have to make certain that we're not the ones holding things back. We have to make sure that we are creating environments where our teams, our employees, our partners feel that there is a great permission for them to think big, think boldly, think broadly, and to not be contained by what might have been true 5 years ago. They have to be really free to test the truths, if you will. At the same time, I'm also making certain that as our business becomes increasingly complex, that we are bringing the best talent possible to our problems. And for Samita, that means people with different backgrounds, different educations, differences in race, genders, and all other aspects that you can imagine. We believe this very rich mix of diversity makes us smarter and makes our solutions better.
I love that attention to the diversity, but it's not just so much the diversity, is it? It's also the inclusion piece of it that often gets left on the side. How are you making sure that, and this can go to, how you operate as a hybrid organization going forward as well. How do you make sure that those voices are equally represented within the company? Because it's easy when you can have FaceTime with the boss when you're in the office, not so easy if you're still one of those workers who's at home.
Yes, you make a really good point, and one of the things that we spend a lot of time talking about as a leadership team is when we do go back to the office, how do we make sure as leaders that those who are in the office who have the most face time, if you will, don't inadvertently be the same people who get the promotions and the biggest pay raises, etc. What it means is that each one of our leaders has to be attentive to every single one of their employees, regardless of where they sit, regardless of where they work from. And it's my job to make certain that not only is this standard put in place, but that we live up to this standard every single day.
And how do you hold your next level of reports accountable for that? Because what you are the standard bearer as the head of the company, but making sure that doesn't get lost as it translates down.
Yes. So, I guess there are a number of ways I go about it. Number one, each one of my leaders understands that their number one job is to create the next generation of leaders and to
I love that.
absolutely assure that we have the best and the brightest people at the table ready to take on the challenges that are so important to us. In order for that to happen, I need to be able to see organizations in action, and I need to see a high level of engagement from across the organization. And the one way we look to make sure that happens is we measure for it, we test for it, we ask the question, we ask, do surveys, and do a lot of work to answer the question. Are people engaged? Do they care about their work? Do they believe their leadership cares about them? Do they see how their work ties into the whole? And at the end of the day, would they sign up and come with us again if they had a chance to interview and be considered for a new role?
That's an amazing way to measure that. And hopefully they all say yes to that. One of the things we often hear, Myrtle, and it sort of makes me a little bit nutsy, is the term the new normal. What are your thoughts on what's normal? I'd like to say this is the opportunity for the industry to be extraordinary. Why do we want to go back to normal? What are your
I
thoughts?
I totally agree with you. I have a visceral reaction when I hear getting back to the new normal. I think we would be remiss as an industry, we would be remiss as leaders if we didn't take this great opportunity that we've just been through and are still going through with the COVID pandemic to really ask the question, what can we do and take forward? What can we say that we learned over the last 2 years that will make us even better as we think about the possibilities? So I think if we miss this opportunity, it would be a shame. These opportunities don't come around often, thank goodness, but it's our
Yes,
job to make certain that we don't move back, that we're always moving forward.
excellent. And I'm going to put you on the spot here. If you could think, let's say 6 to 9 to 12 months ahead, what do you think is the greatest opportunity the industry has in front of it to capture?
Hmm. I think one of the greatest opportunities we have in the next 6, 12 to 18 months is double down again on um, assuring that everyone in America is getting care, has access to care in one way, shape, form, or another. When we first were faced with the COVID problem, I remember one of the early questions was, well, my goodness, who's going to pay for all this, right? We've got to get millions, hundreds of millions of people vaccinated. What does that look like? Well, we've proven that we can come up with solutions that bring great good to the broader population. So I would hope that we would take some of those lessons and really double down and learn even more. And we're still working to make sure that good science prevails, and that we don't have rogue solutions making its way into the mainstream and people inadvertently hurting themselves as they try to get healthy.
Myrtle, thank you so much. This has been such an enlightening conversation. And I love your philosophy on bringing along that next generation of leaders, because if we don't, who will? So thank you for taking the lead in charge of that and making sure that your company is at the forefront of the industry in terms of what you're doing and how you are merging technology along with science in such a responsible and innovative way. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
I hope you all benefited from this event and have taken away some new insights and generated some new ideas about drug development. I'd like to once again thank our friends at Real Chemistry and our amazing thought leader for partnering with us on such a great event. I'd also like to encourage you to consider our past and future web seminars and panels by visiting pharmavoice.com/webinars.